Well, we've heard for weeks, haven't we, about half the government front bench being missing in action, jetting from one international love-in to another. The Prime Minister has been virtually everywhere: Tokyo, Indonesia, Madrid, Paris and Fiji, where he was joined by not one, but two of his ministerial colleagues. Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles has been to Singapore, India and the United States. Tanya Plibersek joined her pals at a United Nations Ocean Conference in Portugal, and the Home Affairs Minister, Claire O'Neill, was in Sri Lanka. What's that got to do with Home Affairs? But Penny Wong takes the prize. She squeezed in 3 overseas trips in 2 months, to so many places you'd think she was AC/DC on a world tour. We know it's been a long way to the top for these Labor MPs, but they were elected to govern Australia, not prance around the world with their friends on the world stage. Everywhere they go, they hobnob with elitists who are fixated on symbolism and virtue signalling. I mentioned at the start of the show the folly we saw last week from the Pacific Island Forum, where again, Albo was talking non-stop about climate change. But you've got to give credit to these Pacific leaders. They sure know how to shake us down. Their 4-part strategy is this: 1, bash up on Australia and in particular the coalition governments and say they did nothing about climate change. 2, let China enter through the front door, take a Rolex or 2 from them, then announce that China plans to build a military base there. 3, wait for reactionary Australian politicians to swoop in and basically double the offer. And finally 4, you and me, the poor mug taxpayer, then pays for it. The joke's on us, but for them, it's genius. Well, speaking of geniuses, one joins me tonight from our Sydney studio, Professor David Flint. I'm sure he has a fair bit to say about all this. Professor Flint, thank you for joining me.
It's a pleasure, Fred.
Now, Professor Flint, what was your take on Prime Minister Anthony Albanese hugging his Solomon Islands counterpart, Manasseh Sogavare, at the Pacific Island Forum last week?
Well, it's nothing more than a photo opportunity. In fact, much of these international conferences are photo opportunities. A lot of any decisions to be taken are taken in advance. The bureaucracies and so on get involved, and the communiques and so on are written in advance. Little is actually decided at these conferences, and what is important are the photo opportunities and the messages that they send.
Well, the only thing that's left to do is to ham it up for the cameras, I'd say. Whenever I see two world leaders ostentatiously showing that much affection for each other, I'm sometimes a bit suspicious about what deals they've been making behind the scenes. In this case, it looks like Albo promised a fat wad of our money to Sogavare, don't you think?
I think you're absolutely right. The only interesting things in these occasions is when the microphones are left on and they pick up something that wasn't intended. For example, the statement by President Obama that he would be going soft after the election when he was speaking to Putin on one occasion. That's when it becomes interesting, but I agree with you. These are all rehearsed, they are photo opportunities, and they're meant there to entertain the media so that the media can entertain us.